So in my first 9 months of Princess House, I was able to purchase that first house. And then something else really exciting happens. I earned my first travel trip. You hear me talking all the time about Princess House and their travel trips and like why we just love them so much. And so I earned my first trip and it was to Hawaii. I was so excited. Never in my life had I ever thought that I would go to Hawaii, much less on an all expense paid vacation for two. But there was one problem, and it was a big problem. My husband couldn't go. He was in the artillery, and they would go to the field for weeks on end, months even. And so when I told him the date of my trip, he was like, I can't go. I'm going to be in the fields. And I was really upset, pretty much devastated. I couldn't believe that here I got this trip and that he wasn't even going to be able to go. So what I did, and I'm going to blame it on being young and naive. I wrote a letter. I wrote a letter saying how I felt that it wasn't fair that they took him away from me to begin with. You know, we were a young family. They kept saying how the Army is family friendly. That wasn't very family friendly to take him away from us. And that here I was working this whole time and I earned this trip and that they wouldn't even let him come. And I was really upset about it. And I said that I just didn't think it was fair. And with the money that they paid him, we could never afford to go, whatever. So I wrote this letter and I sent it to the person who I felt was the highest in command, right? Who would you think that would be? Well, at 24 years old, I thought that was the President of the United States. I really can't believe that I did this. And so I sent a letter to Ronald Reagan, who was the President of the United States at that time. And I sent that letter and I forgot about it. And then a couple of months went by and my husband called me. Now, how it worked back then, he never called me. I always called him. It was really expensive. You know, again, we're talking Stone Age. There was no internet. There were no cell phones. You had to pay long distance calls every time you called. And I'm going to tell you that I spent more money on long distance phone calls than I did on my mortgage every month. It was crazy. So it was twice as expensive for him to call me as for me to call him. So I always called him. But one morning at around 5 o'clock in the morning, I got a phone call from him. And he said to me, I just need to tell you about all the crap that's going on around here. And I'm like, uh-oh, what's going on? He said to me, oh my gosh, did you ever tell me that you wrote a letter to the President of the United States? And I was like, I'm not sure why. He's like, don't ever do that again. He said, I am in so much trouble. They called him out of the field to call me. There's my cuckoo clock that we got in Germany. And he said to me, when is your trip? And my trip was that Thursday, and this was a Monday. And he said to me, I'll call you tomorrow and let you know if I can go. And I'm like, what? And so he called me the next day and he wasn't able to come. It was just too short of a time frame. If it had been the week before, he would have probably had enough time. They would have been able to get him to come. But because it was just days away, he wasn't able to come. And so I called my sister and I was like, hey, guess what? You want a free trip to Hawaii? And I took my sister with me. But I was pretty impressed that the President of the United States responded. It might have took 3 months. He actually wrote me a letter back. I got a really nice letter from the White House. It's just, I don't know where it is. I've lost track of it, which I'm sad about. I would really love to have that letter. But what a cool story that is, right? Even though I got my poor husband in trouble, he got in a lot of trouble. Any of you that are military, oh yeah, commander on down, he got in a lot of trouble.